Everybody. Wonderful to have you with us once again. For those I haven't met, my name is John Lockwood, and I'm part of the SCAFI stroke Israel Allies Foundation, working together with people across the nation. And it's wonderful to see our friends from the north of Australia, South Australia, Western Australia, New Zealand, and I think a couple from Tassie are still there. So just wonderful to have you with us once again. And thank you to David Jack. He selects the music items every month. And once again, he's just outdone himself. And lots of people are asking for the links of where those songs came from, which David will post at some stage. But it's a very warm March welcome to you. I'm back in Melbourne and settling in for the next couple of years in Melbourne. Don't know why I'm here, but I'll find out as we go. But it's good to be close to my good friend, Rabbi Rosenberg, who started this whole thing with myself and a fellow called Peter Kentley many years ago. So I'm going to ask the Rabbi to unmute and to welcome everybody, as he always does, with whatever story he's got to share with us. Welcome, Rabbi.
Need to unmute.
Okay, hi. Thanks so much, John, for your warm introduction, as always. I'll tell you why you're here. As we all understand, you're here because your wife told you to come here, and you obediently followed, as we all do. So I want to start this evening on a note of Thanksgiving. Certainly, Thanksgiving is one of the central themes of the forthcoming Jewish festival of Passover, Pesach. But I begin by sharing with you a fascinating offering that was brought in temple times. Actually read about it in the Torah reading on Shabbat. It was called the Thanksgiving offering, and it was brought to the temple in a situation when a person survived a life-threatening illness. And this offering was quite unique because the offering consisted of 40 loaves of bread. What's even more unusual is that you actually had to eat these 40 loaves of bread in a single sitting in Jerusalem. Look, at first glance, it seems impossible. How can a person consume 40 loaves of bread in 24 hours? But the answer, I think, is simple yet profound. You don't eat it alone. You invite your friends, your family, and your community to join you. And in essence, isn't that what Thanksgiving is all about? Firstly, we express gratitude to Hashem, but secondly, we share that gratitude by inviting others to join the celebration. What's remarkable, most of the temple offerings are no longer observed today, but this one in particular, the tradition continues. In fact, we call it Birkat HaGomel. It's a blessing of thanksgiving that we recite in the synagogue during a Torah reading. So when do we give thanks? And those of us who are familiar with Psalm 107, the psalm speaks about 4 specific situations when a person is required to give thanks. They're life-threatening situations. One is when a person has crossed a great ocean, or second, a person has traversed a great desert. Third, one who's recovered from serious illness, and fourth, one who's been released from captivity. If you reflect closely, these 4 categories mirror the journey of the Jewish people during that great exodus from Egypt. They were released from captivity. They crossed a great sea, the Reed Sea. They journeyed through a vast desert, and certainly they were saved from the physical suffering of slavery. And yes, as we look forward as Jews to sitting around our Pesach table this coming week, we reflect upon that freedom, but at a deeper level, it's also a festival of thanksgiving, a time to give thanks for Hashem, for not only redeeming our ancestors from Egypt, but truly of the tremendous miracles that he has performed, particularly in our days and in our time, since, I do not have to tell you, since that dark day of October 7th, these past 2 years have been incredibly difficult for the Jewish people and Israel. And yet, remarkably, we've also witnessed extraordinary moments. I don't have to enumerate them. You are all familiar with them. They can only be described as miraculous. And for this, we need to give thanks. We need to give thanks for the Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump for their leadership, for their courage and their tenacity. We need to give thanks for the resilience and the unbreakable spirit of the people of Israel. And we need to give thanks to friends like you around the world, because it is your prayers, your support and your donations that have carried the Jewish people through. And above all, we have to give thanks to Hashem for allowing these events to unfold with such unprecedented miracles in our history. Here this evening, we have another reason to give thanks. We are honoured by the presence of our very distinguished guest, the new ambassador of Israel to Australia. And we're very grateful to Pam, one of our great committee members, for making this possible. But before John will formally introduce our special guest, I want to acknowledge and thank really the remarkable contributions made by his predecessor, former Ambassador Amir Maimon. I, together with many of the committee, were privileged to farewell him at the Great Synagogue in Sydney last year during Hanukkah. He was Israel's ambassador during one of the most challenging periods in Israel's history. He demonstrated exceptional leadership, defending Israel and standing up courageously to fight anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and its accompanying hostility. But as I mentioned at the Great Synagogue that evening, I, together with others, want to thank him for something extremely special that he did and he pioneered. He built bridges, he opened channels of communication, he extended a genuine hand of friendship to Christian communities and organizations in a way which few ambassadors had done before. And for this, we remain deeply grateful and thank you. Mr. Ambassador, you certainly step into significant footsteps, but I have no doubt that you will not only continue along the pathways that have been laid, but you will expand them. You will open up new avenues of friendship and communication, particularly with our Christian brothers and sisters whose support for Israel and the Jewish people has been meaningful and unprecedented. So we are grateful for the past, and we look forward to the future in you joining us in continuing in this pathway of friendship and mutual understanding. If I can invite my colleague John Lockwood to formally introduce the ambassador.
Thank you, Rabbi, and wonderful. You've stolen a bit of my thunder. Thanking Amir and welcoming Dr. Hillel Newman as the new ambassador, who I've met online beforehand, but haven't met face-to-face yet, but we will be there shortly. As I have heard his heart for continuing the work of bringing Christians and Jewish communities together. And before I introduce Hillel, I'll just say thank you to all our partners both Jewish and Christian, like ICJ and Christians for Israel, Bridges for Peace, all the different partners we've got around the country. It's wonderful to have you on board as we move forward into this coming year. So I'll ask the ambassador to unmute, if he would, and come online, and welcome him formally to our Southern Cross Alliance, which we originally started, Hillel, now morphing into the Israel Allies Foundation Australia, which I'm sure you know, it supports the caucus, the Israel Allies Caucus, as you met with Andrew Wallace the other day. It's great to have you with us. It's a real pleasure to welcome you on behalf of all our communities to our night tonight, our once a month night. And we were really privileged to have you come just at the last minute. So it's great to have you with you. So I could introduce you in by way of, I could just tell you what I know. You're a historian, you're a scholar, you've been ambassador for 19 odd years. You've been to many different countries, and you've worked with bringing both Christian and Jewish ministries together in the USA, and you've come at exactly the right time into this country. So we just want to give you a very warm welcome and just leave it open to you to share what you would like to share over the next minutes or time that you've got. We'll just go with the flow. If you want to tell people a bit about your background, that's fine, but over to you. Welcome, and it's wonderful to have you with us.
Wow, thank you so much. Really, it's an honor to be with you and with the Southern Cross Alliance for Israel. Really, it's my pleasure, and I'd like to acknowledge my deputy, Amir, who told me about this and invited me to join. And it really is my pleasure to join you all. Yes, I started a month ago, less than a month ago, here in Australia. And as you all know, events have been quite rapid. We're already in the middle of a war, and I'm still getting my gropes in Australia. So I need friends like you to show me the way. Let me just start off with saying that really it's a pleasure to join you, and I regard you as true, genuine friends on a journey together with us, upholding the Judeo-Christian values that we all uphold and meeting the challenges. I'll say a word about our relations between Israel and Australia, but I want to just express a deep appreciation to all of you for your care, for the values, and for working together and supporting Israel and supporting the causes that you believe in. I know that today one pays a price just for standing for one's values, and it requires courage. So my admiration to all of you for the courage and for standing for what is right and being on the right side of history. One word about our relations, it's only natural that Israel and Australia have a natural alliance and work closely together. We have a long history of relations, which is based on shared values. It's way beyond interests. There are a lot of interests as well, and both countries can benefit greatly from our relationship. But it's a matter of values. We fought together after the First World War in the redemption of the Ottoman Empire. We're countries, like-minded countries, which share the same values. It's not a secret that over the past year or two, things have gone on the wrong path, and things have come to a low of some kind. But my ambition is to try and change the track and get things on track as they should be. I come with a lot of goodwill on behalf of the State of Israel. And when I was appointed, then our foreign minister called me up and he said, Hillel, there's a challenging position and I trust you to make a change. So that is my ambition, but I will do whatever I can and try and make a change with friends like you. You are our friends, and together we will make a change. We'll make the world a better place. I can tell you that there are good signs. Since the Herzog visit, President Herzog, I think that made a good change, made a vision for the future and reminded everyone that we share the same values. The Bondi massacre, I think, perhaps also changed perceptions. Who is an enemy? Who is an ally? Bringing back the ideology that should be in place. I've seen a lot of good signs. Also, the fact that Australia stood on the side of the United States and Israel in this campaign against Iran. From day one, Australia took that stand and supported Israel and the United States against Iran. I've also been accepted very, very warmly. The day after I landed, I was immediately ushered in to give my copy of my credentials. And within a week, I submitted my full credentials to the Governor General in the Governor General's residence, which is very rapid, and I think it's a good sign. I've had very good meetings up to now. The Minister of Foreign Affairs received me within a week of my submitting of the credentials. So I think that the discussions are important. We're engaged at high level. And just even tonight, there was a discussion between our Foreign Minister and the Foreign Minister of Australia. So there are ongoing conversations and engagement at the top levels. It doesn't mean we agree on everything. We don't. It's legitimate not to agree. But as I said to the Foreign Minister, and I say this in my meetings, we can agree not to agree, but we should not allow an issue of any kind, whether it's the Palestinian issue or any other issue, to overshadow the fundamental basic relationship and the sharing of values. We shouldn't allow anything to disrupt our basic relationship. I'll go on from here and just mention that in my previous positions, I served as Consul General in Los Angeles and in Boston. And one of my top priorities was reaching out to the Christian community and working closely with the Christian community. In Los Angeles, we built a network of pastors and churches, more than 200 pastors and churches from zero. We built this network, and we used to meet on a quarterly basis, every quarter year. And I used to visit churches, and we really had a wonderful relationship. And it is certainly my priority and my intention to cultivate and build this relationship. We share the same heritage. We share the same values. So I can assure you that that is one of my top priorities. And I'll rely on your assistance to help me and our embassy in reaching out to churches, reaching out to community leaders, and working closely with them. Finally, I'll say a word about the war with Iran, because I don't think we can ignore it. It's not my top priority with you. My top priority is not to give you a briefing on the war, but to cultivate our relationship. But I'll say a word about the war because it's ongoing and it troubles, and it's an issue of concern to many people. So I'll just say that, United States and Israel launched a joint operation. And it's important to stress that this is a joint operation. It's not Israel's decision. It's not US decision. It's a joint operation. No one dragged the other, as you sometimes hear in the news. Both sovereign states understood the threat, the strategical threat that is posed from Iran, and decided to work together to remove this threat. Now, I'd like to explain why we did it now. We did it now because we had intelligence information to the fact that Iran intended to enhance and rapidly refurnish their nuclear military capability, and also produce thousands of missiles and then launch them against Israel and against other states in one go. And both of these aspects are existential threats to the state of Israel and to the region. We have the most sophisticated method of interception of rockets. We have the best in the world. We developed it together with the United States. Now we're selling it all over the world because everyone needs it. They understand that they need it. And it has more than 90% success interception, which is higher than was ever expected. But 90% means that it's not 100%. And we can see that even one or two missiles that get through, they do a lot of damage. We've had more than a dozen casualties. And so you can only imagine if they would launch thousands of rockets in one go, even the most sophisticated method cannot block it all. We would have received many missiles on our population. They target civilian population, while we target military installations and the leadership, the military leadership. That's a very clear distinction between us and them. Another distinction to be made is that the distinction between the regime and the people of Iran. We are targeting the regime. We're targeting the Islamic revolutionary regime. We cherish the people of Iran, and we're actually bringing them freedom from their oppression. We're also hitting at the leadership of the IRGC and the Basij forces, because they are the oppressors of the people of Iran. And we've had demonstrations here in Canberra opposite our embassy in support of Israel, Iranians carrying and holding Israeli flags and bringing us chocolate and flowers because they support Israel and they understand what Israel is doing for them. So we should understand that this world is complex. It's not that everybody hates Israel. It's not true at all. The majority are supportive. There is a large proportion which is very noisy, that is anti-Semitic or just naively swept away and useful idiots that are used against Israel. But there is a vast mass of people that understand what's going on, and even in the Arab world. We expanded our relations in the Abraham Accords with 4 additional Arab states just before the Hamas attacked us. And we could, after the Iranian campaign, there is great potential of expanding the peace further. By removing this threat of the radicals of Iran, we are opening opportunities for the future. Many of these countries in the Gulf and other places have a great interest in normalizing their relations with Israel, but they are afraid. They're afraid of Iran. They're afraid of the radicals, the Shiite radicals, the Sunni radicals. And in this campaign, we are actually emboldening the moderates and we're weakening the radicals. And by that, we are reshaping the entire Middle East. Hopefully, with this campaign will end soon, where we have taken out the nuclear aspect, taken out the ballistic missiles, prepared the ground, laid the foundation for a regime change. But the regime change must come from the people of Iran. So we're trying to remove the fear barrier so that the people of Iran can then take their destiny into their own hands. That's on a nutshell what's going on in the world. If you want to ask questions, if there's time for Q&A, I'll be glad to answer anything you want. But mainly I'm here in order to express my friendship, our kinship, and my intention to work closely with you and all the churches. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Wonderful to have you with us, as I said. And tonight's just a brief introduction for our people to meet you and have the opportunity to see you. I'm sure we will be doing some local events together, either in Canberra, Melbourne, or other capitals over the time period. And we'll extend another opportunity where we'll have you just for one night and do a Q&A as well to give everybody an opportunity. So tonight, we were sort of really surprised and eager to have you on just to introduce everybody to you for a brief time. And then out of the blue, I was having a discussion with another good friend in Israel who I'm about to introduce, who's coming to us live, and that is Commander Daniel Jacob. I think it's Lieutenant Colonel, but I might be Major Daniel. I lose track at how fast he's risen up the ranks of being an ordinary soldier or leader to becoming a leader of the IDF reservists with 500 to 700 men who are working with him, men and women in the reservists. And it's just wonderful to have you on, Daniel. I didn't expect it because I thought you'd be out in the forefront, because of what's happening all around Israel at the moment. But it's with warm welcome we say, come and share with us from on the ground what's happening. Where have you been? How do you see things? What's the atmosphere there from your perspective? And it's just wonderful to welcome you as a good friend, as you have always been over the last, I think since 2012, I think probably when we first did our tour with you as a tour guide. And went up to, where did we go? Right up, you took us right up to the top of the mountain into places we shouldn't have been. But anyway, we won't go into that. Just welcome, Daniel, and please share with us.
Okay, so nice to be here, and thank you for having me. Yes, we know each other for a long time. Things have changed in Israel. I've been in this war from the beginning. October 7th, called up as a lieutenant colonel. I have about 700 soldiers under my command. But before that, I have a touring company. I'm a tour guide, which is not amazing in these times. In the past 6 years, Corona and the wars and everything. But I know that after this time will be an amazing time in Israel. And after this war, it'll be much more safe to be in Israel and to guide and tour and see the homeland of the Christians and the Jews, and the Christians. And now I was called up for the sixth time a month and a half ago. Okay, my soldiers are already 6 times coming back and forth to all kind of areas. We were called up in the beginning to Judea and Samaria. Then we were called up to, after 5 months, from October 7th till about March, April. My guys went back home to their lives, to their homes, to their families, to their children, to their work. And then we were called up again in October 24, then again March 25, then again August 25, and now again in the past in February, my soldiers were supposed to do 1 month from the beginning of February to beginning of March, and a day before they finished their deployment in the Syrian border, I was told by the command that my guys are not going to go home. They're going to be another month because of the war, because the guys that were supposed to replace us, for us to go home to our families and to Passover, were called up to Lebanon, so we have no black guys to replace us. So I'm going to talk from of course, the ambassador. I just heard the end of what you spoke about, all the geopolitics of this area. I'm not going to go into that area, but I want to talk about the guys who are protecting the homes of Israel. So of course we have the missiles, we have the Iron Dome, we have the Laser Dome, we have all kind of amazing, really startups from Israel and the David Sling, whatever, to protect Israel's missiles coming from outside. But my guys are protecting the homes and the families and the communities in Israel from within and from the borders nearby. So of course we're not afraid of. If we go back a few years back, the biggest concern of Israel's government was that not the nuclear power will come from Iran, because we're going to stop it on the way, but it'll be in the Hezbollah and Lebanon border, and it'll be 5 meters from Syria and Judea and Samaria and Jenin and Shechem and Hebron, which it could be really 5 minutes into Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So that's what my guys do. We go every night into all kind of homes in Judea and Samaria. We go into Gaza. We go into the communities nearby the border in Lebanon, and we find lots of terror. We find guns. We find just last night, my guys. Of course, I'm already not in my number one of the unit anymore, because I'm called the consultant now. So I could go back home like now and be with you guys and talk and not be with my guys in the field, because younger guys and stronger guys than me are now in the field. But all the guys are reservists. So we found in the past couple weeks, just in the past couple weeks, in Judea and Samaria, and before that in the communities nearby Syria border, RPGs, M16s, and everything. Now, a lot of them, and a lot of ammunition, and lots of money and checks that were we call them money for terrorism. We found checks from from Spain. We found checks from Sweden for paying terrorists to do terrorist actions in Israel and in the borders of the north and in Gaza. And also now in the past couple, before the deployment now, we had a few missions inside even Israel Bedouins communities to find a lot of guns over there too. And which is coming, some smuggling out from the Egyptian border or Jordanian border or whatever. So we have a lot of work to do to defend Israel from nearby borders. Listen, this is a very big mission because we want to live in peace. I have 4 kids, thank God. My oldest is in the army. My youngest is 10 years old. We just played basketball a few minutes ago. And I teach my kids to love. I teach my kids there's a future of peace. I teach my kids that we have a future to live in next to our neighbors, Jordanian neighbors, Egyptian neighbors, whatever. But the problem is if we don't stop the education from the other side, my kid I just played with, 10 years old boy that just died, his name is Eyal. I play with him basketball. He's going to be also in the army and do the same missions like his older brother. Like it says in the Bible, we're leaving our sword all the time. And it's a problem because the education is always teaching them to delete Israel. The education on the other side, I've seen things in the living rooms. I've seen things when I arrested all kind of terrorists inside Judea and Samaria and Jenin, Shechem, whatever. You see what they teach their kids. They don't teach like I teach my kids. And a lot of Jewish people in Israel teach their kids. They teach their kids that we have to eliminate Israel. We don't want to live next to Israel. We want to live beside and instead of Israel. This is found in Gazan, Hamas communities. We found this in Judea and Samaria. We found this 2 meters from Route 6, a community called Kalkilia, which is very close to the border or to the Green Line or to the highway of Israel, and also the northern borders. So the main thing that I think we have to do nowadays, we're going to take down the head of the snake soon, which actually fed and gave all this instruction of money and everything to these communities and to these organizations of Hamas and terrorists and Hezbollah and everything and Jihad Islamic Jihad to start changing their aspect to this whole situation of Israel being over here. We're not going anywhere. For there, when I have to understand this crowd over here, you have to understand that when you go into a house in Judea and Samaria or in Gaza, you see in a big picture of the Dome of the Rock of Jerusalem, and you see one map of Israel with only Arab communities inside. They don't see Israel in the future of this whole region. Now, I'm not talking about left and right in Israel. I'm not talking about politics now. I'm talking about facts. This is what we see in our eyes. So I could say if I'm a left wing in Israel, say maybe we could start giving them land for peace or giving them this or doing this or that. Or if I'm right wing, I say I'm going to start fight for our independence. I'll do whatever I want to do. But still, this is what they think about us. They don't care. When they came into October 7th into Israel, didn't ask the kibbutzim near Gaza, are you left wing or right wing? Are you Jewish? Are you religious or secular Jew? No, they killed us because they were Jews. We were Jews. They didn't care about our opinions. They didn't care about our religious aspects, nothing. And that's the crowd that we're dealing with all the time on the other side of the border. It's from Iran miles from here, and it's from 2 miles from here in Kalkilia or in Gaza or Lebanon border. Now, of course, it's not so fair because we have 1 billion Muslims in the world. We have 8 million Jews around Israel and also altogether 15 million maybe all around the world. So of course it's not so fair because it's like the odds are not, no matter what I'm going to say in social media, what an ambassador will talk about in his media and all the whatever Minister of Foreign Affairs, we're always going to be the minority in any situation. The Free Palestine situation that's going on now, that's going too much under too how do you say in Israel, meshuga, like too crazy. It's too out of order. That everything that has to do with like the situation, no matter what we're going to do, is always wrong. When Iranians are killing, butchering people inside Iran, it's okay. When Syrians are butchering people, Druze, that we're actually 8 months ago, I was in the southern part of the Golan Heights. My mission was to help Druze, D-R-U-Z, Druze, not Jews, Druze communities from the Syrian attacks. And I'm Jewish. What am I doing there? But we're moral and we care about people and life. We cherish right. We worship life. They do the opposite. And we had to actually go into Syria and stop an attack of Syrians into a Druze village or whatever. It was crazy. Now, the situation of always us doing the right thing, but always in the world seems the wrong thing, that's your job to help us. The Christians are more amount of people than the Muslims in the world. We need help. No matter what we're going to say is always wrong. And I have so much, I'll give you examples. I have tons of examples to give you about what I say it in English, when can I shoot or not shoot? The laws of what's it called? Hillel,
Laws of armed conflict, rules of
Engagement. Rules of engagement.
Rules of engagement, exactly. Now, when I arrested a few nights ago, we went to a house in the community next to Nablus. Okay? And we're like special forces that we go from place to place and we do arrests and whatever we have to do. And we had women in the house. So my soldiers are not allowed to touch the women. We have to bring a female soldier from our base to be with us if something happened with the women. We put him in a side room. We give him water. We relax him because we're going to now find some terrorist issues. We're going to arrest the father or the brother or the son or whatever. We're going to find guns, whatever the mission is. We are very, very moral. And what we do is so strict in if he has a gun, I'm not allowed to shoot him, only if he shoots at me. And if he has a knife and he's about 5 meters and more, I can't shoot him because he's not a threat. Only if he's close to me and he could stab me, then I could kill him to shoot and kill. And if not, only shoot the legs, and if not, shoot the sky, or crazy situations of the laws of engagement. That's the only place in the world that has this. And soldiers were killed in Gaza because of laws of engagement. That's a fact already. It wasn't in the Supreme Court issues. This woman that was in charge, hopefully she'll be in jail soon, that was in charge of suing soldiers from our side. She was a lawyer of the soldiers and she was always against them for all kind of reasons. Of course, I could think left and right, different opinions. That's fine. Israel. But when you have a lawyer on your shoulders and not a commander telling you what to do in tactical ways, but the lawyer is more important than the tactical commander, that's a problem. So this is the only situation in the whole world we have this situation. Only country. So again, no matter what we'll do, we're going to seem in the world as the most worst and unmoral and whatever army we have in the world, but we're doing the opposite all the time. You have to understand this. So we need your help for this. Show the world the truth. We can send you footage. We can send you information. We can send you facts. We can whatever you want. We can send you what we found yesterday in the homes of guns and everything. I can show you the books that they're teaching their kids of how to kill soldiers. And this is in first grade in the other side of the fence in Israel.
Goodness.
So, questions?
Wonderful, Daniel. Look, I just want to say thank you. You know, you're the man on the ground. It's just wonderful that you made yourself available to come and give us updates. We know the big challenge is in the education, and it's same here in Australia. And one of the things that I'm hoping Ambassador Hillel will help us with the caucus members, that's the members of the Australian Parliament, to help educate their regions, their areas that they represent. There's some 35 members of parliament that are members of the Israel Allies Caucus, and the foundation is there to support those members of parliament to go to their electorates, to share in their electorates what's happening both here and in Israel, what we're fighting in educational, let alone with the guns and rifles, which we need to always keep at the front of our mind, that you are the ones that are representing us there day by day, night by night. And as you say, those rules of engagement, no other army in the world, I don't think, from historians, have ever had to face. In fact, I'm going to ask our next guest in a minute, Mike Kelly, because he's an expert in this area of engagement rules around the world. As he
No, I
might
want to say
see
one last thing. I want to say last thing before I say goodbye to you guys. That
Yeah.
we're going to. I know we're going to win this war because the families and the people of Israel are amazing, and that's a big difference.
Yeah.
We're called up at the 5th deployment now, or 6th deployment. The wives and the families are heroes. Not us. We are having good coffee and we're having amazing, cool, action in the front fields. But the families and the women that are with the kids and no school now, and all these crazy situations we have, and they're tired and they're exhausted, and they have to also go to work, but they have to have no babysitters because no one. It's a crazy situation that these guys, hundreds and thousands of reservists, are actually doing day by day. They're heroes, but the wives and families are even more.
Yeah.
So that's why I know we're going to win this war, because the people of Israel are strong.
Yeah. We agree. And Daniel, as you know, we pray for you and your family and the kids, many of us. So we will continue to do that for all the IDF and for all the soldiers that are fighting. So it's just wonderful that you make the time to come on tonight. I'm cutting everybody a bit short tonight. I'm sorry. We weren't expecting everybody to come on at one time, but it's such a pleasure to have, an ambassador role, an on-the-foot soldier role that we can understand and be up to date with. And now I'm going to introduce Dr. Mike Kelly, who's become a friend, and he comes as an expert in the inverted commas security role. He's an two-time ALP member for the Eden Monaro area. I think I'm correct in that. He served in many of the wars for Australia, ended up being a colonel, I think, when he finally was extracted out of the day-to-day stuff like you will be, Daniel, and he's become a real, I won't say expert because that's always, but he's become somebody who can advise us as to what's going on both in the Middle East and in depth in what's happening in our own country. So it's with great, wonderful thanks that we now get to hear from Mike Kelly as to some of the things that he's experiencing on the worldwide front. So over to you, Mike. Welcome.
Thank you, John, and g'day to everyone. Really terrific to be back with you together again. And can I also just thank Daniel for his service and for all the men and women of the Israeli Defence Force, what they've suffered and endured, and they're fighting not just for the survival of the state of Israel, not just for the survival of Jews all over the world, but for the whole of the West. They're on the front line of the fight for us. And I remember the German Chancellor said recently that Israel is doing Western Europe's dirty work for it in taking on Iran, and nothing could be truer. So it's wonderful to have you with us, Daniel, and hopefully God will protect you and your family, and that there won't be too far away the final success of the arms of the IDF in eliminating the number one source of threat in that region in relation to Iran. And also great to see you, Hillel. Looking forward to meeting with you, and welcome to our country. It's fantastic to have you here and already enjoying your weighing in straight off the plane into the issues of the day and doing it in a very convincing and articulate way. So thank you for being here to help us in the trenches to help you. Yeah, look, just following off the back of Daniel's comments, just recently I was invited to join a group called the Council of Military Leaders, which are a group of senior officers who served in operational circumstances that are kind of relevant to the challenges that Israel's facing, people who've been involved in targeting decisions at scale and difficult circumstances that in some respects are comparable to what the IDF's been going through and dealing with. And they're made up of officers from Germany, the UK, United States, Australia, and also civilian counterterrorism experts from the FBI and UK police, etc. And it's been a fantastic experience with these guys. It's and one woman actually, a really great expert on some of the technological challenges we're facing with information warfare, which in some ways is maybe the most serious threat, the most serious battle that we have to face because of the extent of it and how intentional it is. And we might touch on that further down the track here in these comments. But I think that the major takeaways I'll just focus on today. We were there for a week and a half, had an incredibly intense and dense experience. We were very grateful for being given fantastic intelligence briefings at a very high level. We were at the Southern Command headquarters in Beersheba, which, as you know, is the site of an Australian war grave cemetery. My family served in the Light Horse in the First World War. They were in Israel again in the Second World War. Well, my grandfathers, my aunts and uncles. So the connection to the Yishuv runs very deep in our family. And as brothers and sisters in arms, that is something that's close to my heart, our relationship with the IDF. But it's extremely fruitful experience that I could spend probably a month talking about. So I'm just going to distill it down to a couple of the key things that are of note. And, there are many times I've been asked by people, well, look, you look at the scale of the damage in Gaza, and we went into Gaza as well as doing a foot patrol with the IDF in the West Bank in Tulkarem. But people say, how is it possible that there could be so much devastation? Hamas couldn't possibly have been in every building. And of course, we're not just talking about Hamas. There are about like half a dozen groups in Gaza, including Palestinian Islamic Jihad is probably the other major group, but a couple of others. And the truth of it is no, they weren't. They weren't in those buildings at the same time, but they were eventually in almost all of those buildings at some point. And this was the thing that was really driven home to us very, very deeply, was that this was the most diabolical battle space any military has ever faced in history. We are not just talking about the difficulty of the urban terrain, which I know from experience is incredibly challenging and incredibly stressful. And in the history of urban warfare, it can also be the graveyard for the forces that are attacking. Not to also comment on those defending, but if you look at the history of these battle spaces, they're actually the intention of those who are defending them and using them to their advantage is to actually cause mass casualties to your opponent. And certainly Hamas had done that in relation to Gaza. They had prepared the Gaza Strip as a death trap for the IDF should it penetrate operationally rather than just launching counterstrikes against Hamas rocket and missile fire. But that urban terrain, as challenging as it is, was complemented by a subsurface terrain that originally there was speculation that this was about 500 kilometres worth of underground tunnels and facilities. And it turns out that now the estimate is around about 1,000 kilometres. So Hamas and its allies had created an entire manoeuvre space beneath the surface of Gaza. So not only is the IDF fighting a 360-degree battle where you don't know where the next sniper shot, where the next IED, reserve demolitions in the buildings that you're moving in and out of, and the rocket missile launch sites, the tactical command posts. In the briefing that we got at Southern Command, they showed us a map, which, obviously we weren't allowed to take away with us as a graphic, but it really brought it home to us. On this map, it showed in a range of coloured dots what all of the significant tactical targets and situations were that the IDF faced. And this map was entirely covered with these dots. And the dots that represented tunnel shafts, these command and control tactical posts, the rocket and missile launch sites, the places that where Hamas and Islamic Jihad were operating out of as units, and then when they couldn't operate as formed units or formations anymore, the doctrine was to break down into terrorist cells with preposition weapons, ammunition, and food. So this space was entirely militarized. Every single square inch of the Gaza Strip was militarized. And this is where all of the aid money and effort had gone into. The expense of that subsurface battle space in particular, which included weapons manufacturing facilities, very sophisticated command posts, and holding places designed for holding hostages as part of their tactics. So, you're seeing a situation where how does a defence force or deal with a situation, with the assault that they met from an enemy that respects no aspects of rules of engagement or laws of armed conflict, whose design is the destruction of the state of Israel. How do you maintain the discipline of your own forces in the face of what we saw happen on October the 7th? And I know how hard that is, when your forces are in a situation where their emotions start to get engaged. It's very difficult to maintain the sort of discipline that the IDF does. So that was probably one of the greatest achievements of the IDF. You've had hundreds of thousands of soldiers rotating through Gaza now. And knowing they will all have known somebody who was killed, somebody who was raped, families of somebody who was killed or raped or taken hostage, etc. So it's incredibly personal for all of those IDF members involved. But in terms of the targeting processes in dealing with that environment, the discipline and the sophistication was unparalleled. It had never been seen before on any battle space. And I've been involved in these targeting processes many times. And we like to think we do things, in a sophisticated way, bring to bear the technology that we have. But Israel took it to a whole new level, and they sacrificed levels of tactical military advantage in order to achieve these objectives of minimizing civilian casualties. So the efforts that they went into in enabling the evacuation of civilians meant tens of thousands of lives were saved. And then, of course, all of the warning measures they took in terms of texting on phones, dropping leaflets, you name it, they used everything at their disposal to communicate with the population and attempt to provide it with warnings of potential attacks. And also the way they brought in an incredible array of capabilities to try and deal with the maintenance and sustainment of the population. You never hear this because it doesn't serve the narrative of Israel committing a genocide. But, there were 36 hospitals in Gaza before the war to service 2 million people. So that was pretty impressive to begin with. But I kept hearing from people like Senator Pocock saying to me, Israel's destroyed all of the hospitals in Gaza. So Israel didn't bomb a single hospital. There was fighting certainly around the hospitals, but to this day, 17 of those hospitals are functional. The others haven't been destroyed. They don't have the utilities, etc., the capabilities to operate right now. But in relation to that missing capability, Israel facilitated the deployment of 15 field hospitals. 15 field hospitals. And in addition to that, 3 hospital ships were working off the coast. And 9 mobile medical clinics were introduced into the Gaza Strip. But perhaps most extensively, and of course about 150 odd ambulances were brought in too. But the most significant thing that tells you that this story of genocide is complete nonsense is that 1,300 medical personnel were sent into Gaza to vaccinate 600,000 kids to ensure there was no outbreak of things like polio. So if you're intent on genocide, why would you vaccinate 600,000 people? It's just ridiculous. And just as a full stop on that conversation, the so-called independent commission of inquiry that the UN organised based on the Human Rights Council was made up of some of the most virulent anti-Israel advocates that we've ever seen. And so it wasn't an attempt to get to an objective understanding of what had happened and whether or not genocide was indicated. It was an attempt to prove that genocide had happened. And they falsified information in that report. So when they're trying to indicate someone's inciting genocide, they used a half of a sentence of a person and cut off the other half, where they'd say, make it very clear they were talking about Hamas and not the civilian population, deliberately doctored their statements. And then one of the most heinous examples they give in their report, they spend 7 long paragraphs talking about this one fertility clinic in Gaza. And their claim is that the IDF fired a tank round into this fertility clinic and ignited the hydrogen tanks and blew the building sky high. And this is evidence of genocide, that Israel's trying to prevent Gazans from breeding, right? So firstly, it isn't true. I can show you a photograph of the building still standing. Certainly it's got some battle damage, in terms of bullet marks on the building. It didn't blow up. It's obviously not operational because it was right in the middle of a battle space, but it's still there. And to the other point is that in the 2 years of the war, 95,000 children were born in Gaza. 95,000. So do you think one fertility clinic was going to create the situation of preventing Gazans breeding? But this is a major example they cite as evidence of genocide. It's just insane. And there's no attempt to actually delve down into what was going on around that facility in terms of the battle at the time. So, it's absolute nonsense. But, we were really blessed also to get briefings at other levels, and we spoke to the author of the Dinar report and into the sexual violence of October the 7th, and it's very poignant to raise that now in the context of Grace Tame getting out there and alleging that was all nonsense. There were no sexual assaults. It was systematic, it was savage, it was gratuitously sadistic, and it was a tactic of war by Hamas. And that was what even the UN was forced to find off the back of the special representative to the Secretary General on Sexual Violence in Conflict, Pramila Patten, who came back after witnessing 50 hours of video and 5,000 photographs, and clearly found the savagery, the horror, and her personal shock at what she saw. And we were shown some of that material when we were in Israel as well at the Kiryat. We watched the updated videos, etc., and every bit as appalling and shocking as you can imagine, but definite evidence of this sexual violence. And so the UN was actually then forced to list Hamas as an entity that employs sexual violence as a weapon of war. So even the UN was forced to do this. Interestingly, they still haven't taken the step of nominating Hamas as a terrorist organisation, notwithstanding this finding. So, it's a very strange organisation these days. But we also met with some political figures at the Knesset, and one of the and talked a lot about the post-war dynamics around Israel's relationship with the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria and Gaza. And one of the interesting things that's emerged there that has not been on the radar is, and I've studied Palestinian society quite a bit, and so I know, for example, that in the West Bank there are 176 different tribes in the West Bank alone. And just recently, 5 of the main tribes in Hebron asked if they could become parties to the Abraham Accords, if they could sign up, because there's quite a groundswell of opinion of how heinous the Palestinian Authority has been, how just deeply systemically corrupt it is, how Palestinians have lost complete faith in the Palestinian Authority. And so this is part of a new model that's being explored by a lot of Palestinians, which is that abandon this idea of a Palestinian state and move to something more in tune with the United Arab Emirates that we see in the UAE. So to create a Palestinian Emirates. And the idea would be that Israel retains sovereignty of Judea and Samaria and is responsible for security and foreign policy, etc. But these tribal areas have autonomy within that sort of realm. And actually, they'd be operating quite a bit like Israeli Arab towns do in Israel, to be truthful. So, but they would control their own societies. They know that Israel's now very nervous about, sort of Palestinians just moving around in Israel. So they're saying, look, let us have 1,000 people moving into the economy to begin with. If that works, then we gradually increase that over time. And talking to the party members of Israel Beitenu, they actually said that they'd also be quite happy with these members of these communities voting in Jordanian elections, if there were to be anything as seriously resembling a democracy in Jordan at any point. But so it was an interesting concept that none of us had talked a lot about or been very aware of. But whether or not it can ever go anywhere, that's got a lot to do with the Palestinians who are running the Palestinian Authority and others who are in a position to exploit their situation for the extensive corruption that they're engaged in. So how you would move that ball forward is a big open question. But what I would just say is that dynamic just tells me let's keep an open mind about what the way forward might be into the future. And I'll just finish building on what Daniel said. We all came away from that mission. We'd been given access to young men and women of the IDF in various locations, and we sat down and broke bread with them. Unfettered access, they were able to speak freely. We were able to ask them whatever questions we liked. And it was the one thing when we came to sum up the visit amongst ourselves when we were finishing up that we all zeroed in on, just how incredibly impressive the young men and women of the IDF are, and just having total confidence in the future of Israel if this is the next generation. They're proud of their country. They know what they're fighting for. They know they're there to defend Jews everywhere and the West, that they're fighting for the values of the West. They know that's on them. They know what sort of environment they're in, where quarter may not be granted, the sort of enemy they're facing, but they're up for it. And it was just so impressive to sit down with them. And I guess one illustration of that really emotionally struck a huge note with all of us. I mean, there's a lot of things that were confronting in the visit, but the thing that really made the biggest impact on us was a visit to the military base of Nahal Oz, not the kibbutz, which is next door, but this was a monitoring station, effectively, which is only about 700 metres from the fence with Gaza. And it wasn't built to repel a ground attack. It had some rudimentary fortifications and was mainly geared to provide protection against rocket barrages and the like. And because of Simchat Torah, there was a big stand down. There was only 160 members on duty at the time, and only 90 of them were armed. And there was a group of young women who were part of the intelligence monitoring service who are there to provide information from the monitors that are observing the fence line. And so on the day of the attack, there was an entire Hamas battalion assigned to attack their base. So it was literally hundreds of terrorists, upwards of 500 altogether, coming in 3 waves in this assault. And so the And these are young women who are straight out of high school, had just done their basic training. They're 18 and 19 years old, and they were unarmed. And those who were armed literally fought to the death at this base, like Captain Eden Nimri, amazing young woman who's a really superb swimming athlete, very special person. She fought to the death to defend these girls. And there was a handful of Golani Brigade troops there as well who did the same thing. Literally ran out of ammunition and fought with their knives. They were called on to surrender and refused. So this was a sort of like Israel's Alamo in a way, but the story of these young women that really struck a note with us particularly was that they kept reporting. They're watching through their monitors these waves of terrorists descending upon them. They knew exactly what was going to happen to them. They knew that the IDF was going to prioritise defending the civilians. No one was coming for them, and they could see what a mass wave was coming to get them. And they kept reporting right up until the very last, until their monitors went dark. And then almost all of them were incinerated in that command centre at the end. So we were deeply, and the young lady, the staff sergeant who took us through this was one of their colleagues and friends who just wasn't there on the day. And she played us a recording of their reporting to their high command. And you could hear in their voices, what they knew, what was about to happen to them. And just particularly near the end, it was just so heartbreaking that, it was very, very hard for us to take but just how impressed, how much it meant to us to see these people committed to their duty to the very end. So for us, we're not asked to go out and, risk incineration, rape or murder. We're just asked not to sit on our hands, and don't be intimidated by the trolls on social media who gives us stuff what they say. This isn't facing, certain death at the hands of a terrorist battalion. We just have to stand up and, really do our part in the information warfare battle that's in front of us, and do it as a tribute to those young women. So I'll just end it there. Thanks very much.
Wow, Mike. Hard to respond. What you experienced and what you've gone through, but it gives us some idea of how do we cope with these things. You've been at the forefront, and I just want to say thank you to you, and thank you for Hillel for staying on and listening to some of the stories. These are our friends, and as SCAFI or Israel Allies Foundation, we're there to bring the partners like Mike Kelly and all our other Christian and Jewish friends to face the war of, as you say, the social media, the media, the people who are misinformed that are travelling the streets of every capital city on Sunday afternoons, distracting, and it's our job to re-educate, to I won't say befriend, but certainly to come alongside and have reasonable discussions with, because most of these people are well misinformed by the media situations, and we need our friends to stand with us, and that's all of you who are here with us tonight. Plus, I'm quite sure there'll be hundreds and hundreds who watch the replay of this who will say, how do we become part of supporting this? So, well, the good news from our perspective is the Israel Allies Foundation Australia has, a few weeks ago, finally got DGR recognition. So we are now gathering the forces of all our partners to come and tackle anything that provides harm to other people. And so, we're going to be open for business, and we're going to open up our partnerships and work with our ambassador and our Jewish friends all across Australia. And as you said, Mike, and Daniel said, the Christians are in numbers, capable of fighting this spiritual battle, not the physical one, but the spiritual one that we're facing. We are capable of this. And so I call upon all our friends to become part of, support where you can. Get on to Mike's podcast that he's doing. And if you want to put that in the chat, Mike, on a regular basis, he's a really, laying it out there as to what's actually happening. To, come alongside the ambassador and where we meet together. I want to say thanks to Amir Maron too for helping putting all this together from the embassy up there, and for people like Daniel Jacob and all the troops that he serves. We are just wonderfully blessed to be able to have you as friends. So I just want to say thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to pass to the rabbi to finish off for the night. And then we'll say a big thank you and open up the mics and give applause for everyone. Over to you, Rabbi.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Sean. And what an inspirational evening this has been. I began with a note of thanksgiving, and I must share with you at the beginning of the week, John and I were scratching our heads. We'd only had one speaker on our list, and that was Mike Kelly. And having said that, Mike was an extremely eloquent speaker. He's a dear old friend going back to the days of Michael Danby. I know him well, and he's got an incredible passion and love for Israel, as you've seen. But we were saying normally we have three speakers, and this was Monday, and then miracle after miracle happened. Pam sends a text, "I've got the ambassador. He's available." Hillel Newman came on board, and then John came along and says, Daniel will also be sharing with us some thoughts about Israel from on the ground. And what an incredible evening this has been. And I think we've had a record this evening with over 100 people participating, and many more certainly will be joining. We'll be looking on YouTube. I do want to conclude the evening on a positive note, and I hope you will join me this Tuesday evening, Wednesday evening. Jews around the world will sit around our tables. We will retell the story of the Exodus. We'll drink 4 glasses of wine to remember the great redemption. We'll remember the bread that our forefathers ate, the matzah, and we'll eat the moreh, the bitter herbs. But after a sumptuous meal, we pour a fifth cup, the cup of Elijah that foretells the future redemption. There will come a time of the Messianic era when God will return all the Jewish people back to their homeland, and we hope and pray together that this day will come soon. We conclude that night with 3 words: Lashana haba b'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. So firstly, if I could ask everybody just to unmute. There is a song, and Ambassador Hillel, Amir Maimon and I made a great duet. We always ended with a song. So I'm inviting you to join me together with everybody else to conclude with that famous song that we end the Seder with. Lashana haba b'Yerushalayim, Lashana haba b'Yerushalayim, Lashana haba b'Yerushalayim, Lashana. Please God, next year in Jerusalem.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Shalom. And next year in Tehran as well.
Shalom, shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Thank you.
Well done, everyone. Well done.
Shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dad.